welcome back again to another Java tutorial. And in this Java tutorial I'm going to give a quick overview of arrays. So once again, let me create a class file. Example 11. Okay, so why do we need arrays? Well, very simple. A variable like integer a can only store one value. However, it would be nice if we can store multiple values in a variable sometimes. For example, if we need to have a list of things. So this is where arrays can come in handy. So what if I want to declare a array of integers or a list of integers that at least needs to have 10 values inside of it. So how do I do that? I say integer, square bracket, number array or number r equals new integer square bracket, so integer array, and then I indicate between those square brackets the size of the array. So right now I have a number array that I can use to store 10 values. So how do I go about storing those values? Well, very simple. Just repeat the array name, use the square brackets, and then indicate at which location in the array you would like to store a value. So given I have 10 spaces in my array, each of these spaces has been given the numbers from 0 to 9, meaning the first space has number 0 and the last space in the array has been given the index number, as they call it, of 9. So number r0 in this case is going to contain the value of 1. The second index with index number 1 is going to contain the value of 2. And lastly, to not make this tutorial too long, I'm going to say index number 9 has the value of 7. Okay, so how do I read these values again? Okay, also very simple. If I want to print, for example, a value, and this time I'm going to do it without text, I simply repeat the number of the variable again. Between those square brackets I indicate the index number of the number I would like to print, and that's pretty much it. So now if I run this, my console should give me the number 1. Yes, and that's correct. So if I want to print the value of index 1 and index 9, I simply repeat the same thing. There you go, 1, 2 and 7. Okay, let's quickly look at a other way of storing variables in an array. So say if in this case I want to create an array of strings, for example a name array, and I want to store 3 names in it that I already know, I can actually store them as follows. First I declare the array as per normal, then behind the equals I say accolade open and an accolade close and a semicolon. Then between those accolades I will provide the values of this array separated by a comma. So in this case I could provide the name John, followed by Mary, Eric, and well, 3 names is enough. So right now, if I go and print, again using my system.out.println, I want to print the name at index 0. After that, I would like to print the name at index 1. And lastly, I want to print the name of index 2. So respectively, if I run this, the names John, which is at index 0, Mary at index 1, and Eric at index 2 will appear. Now let me show you what will happen if I try and print a value of an index that doesn't exist. Index 3, which would imply the 4th name in a row, which is not the case, which doesn't exist. In which case I will get a java long.array index out of bounds exception. This basically indicates that I'm trying to read or write, in this case read, to an index that does not exist. Okay, the last thing we can do with an array is I can also get the length of the array, in case you would like to know that, by saying name r dot length. This actually is a integer value that can be stored therefore as a this is an integer value that can be stored in an integer variable, which I can then print. Okay, so if I now run this, it will actually show array length is 3 because there are 3 names in there. Lastly, and that's a little bit outside the scope of this particular video, I can use a for loop. So for integer I is 0, continue to loop while I is smaller than name r dot length. So I will continue looping based on the length of the array, how long that will be, and every time I will increase the value of I with 1. So yeah, basically then inside my for loop I say system.out.println by saying array value plus name r, and then between the square brackets I put I. Basically what is happening here, I have a for loop which starts counting with 0, will continue to loop as long as the I, which has the value 0, is smaller than the length of the array. So the last value that will allow the loop to continue will be value 2, and for each loop I will increase I with 1. Then I will use this same I counter as the index indicator for the array. So now if I run this, and just for clarity I will comment those 3 lines out before I begin. So now let's run, and again John, Mary and Eric appears. If I would like to do this the other way around, I can say okay, I is not 0 but name r.length, and I will continue looping as long as I is bigger than or equals to 0, and I will be reduced by 1 every time. Sorry, correction, should not be length, because length is 3 and 3 does not exist as an index. Should be length minus 1. So now if I run this, I get the exact same list but then in reverse order. So this is a quick overview of how you declare an array, how you can put values in an array, how you can read values from an array, and how you can use a for loop to print everything in an array. See you next time.